So this is probably one of the most common questions that couples are seeking advice for, because most couples are not dealing with some of the more kind of inflammatory things like infidelity or something else of that nature that might be really difficult, but they're arguing about common things such as differences with finances or in-laws or differences with child rearing or frustrations around the equality in the home and the division of chores. So most arguments are typically about one of these kind of things that I mentioned. Yet the structure, regardless of what you're talking about and arguing about, is kind of the same if you want to be successful. One is, if you notice that you're having a lot of arguments with your partner, start getting in touch with yourself and see if you can notice those moments where the conversation goes here and then spikes up to, yelling or screaming or threatening divorce or threatening to be done with your partner or throwing stones at each other. So if you can notice the moment before that happens. And one of the things that you'll notice is, prior to big arguments, your heart rate changes, the tension in the body changes, the way that your brain starts to function changes. We call this the fight, flight, freeze. And there's another one called fawn, and it's the fight, flight, freeze response, which is your nervous system is starting to get tense and your nervous system is seeking safety. If you can notice when those moments come up and notice it as a physical sensation in your body, and then if you can, kindly request to take a pause. We know from the data and the research that when somebody is in a fight flight state, they're not going to do very well having a discussion. That is not your friend anymore. An animal in a fight or flight state, it's not your friend. It's an animal that needs to save itself. We have that same nervous system inside of us, even with our husband, even with our children, even with our wife, even with our parents, that if somebody really aggravates us and our nervous system starts to amplify, we will not be friendly. We will run. We will say nasty things. We will fight. We will do whatever it is that our body and our brain starts to think will save us. And from that place, we're not friends anymore. So if we can try to take a pause, quite often that's one of the first things that I do with couples is learn how to notice when those moments come up. Now, if you don't have a problem with escalating where you're yelling or threatening divorce or threatening to leave and end things or saying really kind of atrocious things or painful things to one another, if that's not an issue, but you still feel that tension of the argument, then what you can do is fall back on a couple skill sets. A lot of therapists and counselors and researchers have come up with a variety of ways for us to be better listeners. In grade school, we learned I statements. Later on, we might learn from research what Dr. John and Julie Gottman call the gentle startup process, Dr. Harville Hendricks and his process, imago therapy, Dr. Marshall Rosenberg with his method of nonviolent communication. I'm sharing all of these with you to tell you that all of these great minds have summarized essentially that learning how to share how you feel emotionally, learning how to repeat back what you heard from your partner and show empathy and ask questions ultimately reduces the fight or flight state and increases the sense of connection and attunement. But if you're noticing that you guys are getting in the fight or flight state, learn how to take pauses, let your nervous system calm down, and nerves take a while to calm down. So you want 20, 30 minutes, an hour would be even really good. Let your nervous system calm down and then come back and check with your partner. Hey, I know we're having a difficult discussion. Can we try to check in again? And you will notice the conversation goes completely different.